What's up? I'm Lily Revenge Crown, brings you the stories that keep you hooked. If that sounds good, smash subscribe and let's go.
The baby shower had been going exactly as expected. Pink and white balloons clustered in every corner of my parents' living room. A three-tier diaper cake sat on the gift table. My sister Rachel had spent the last 45 minutes walking guests through every piece of furniture in the nursery she'd decorated, complete with price breakdowns and photos on her phone. The crib was $1,200, but it converts into a toddler bed, so really it's an investment, she'd explained for the third time. And the glider? $800, but it has a USB charging port built into the armrest. Revolutionary. Our mother had nodded along enthusiastically, her face glowing with pride. Our father had written the check for most of it, beaming as Rachel thanked him effusively in front of all the guests. I'd been sitting quietly in the corner, eating petit fours and waiting for an acceptable moment to leave. Then Aunt Linda, my grandmother's younger sister and the family's most successful CPA, settled into the chair next to mine with a cup of punch and a knowing smile. "How's life after that $1.8 million trust fund matured?" Her voice carried perfectly across the sudden lull in conversation. Rachel's hand froze mid-swipe on her phone, a photo of a $400 changing table suspended on the screen. The smile on her face flickered like a candle in wind. My mother's teacup rattled against its saucer. A droplet of Earl Grey splashed onto her cream-colored blouse. She didn't move to wipe it. My father's face went through three distinct expressions in 2 seconds: confusion, recognition, and something that looked uncomfortably close to panic. "What trust fund?" The words came out barely above a whisper, but in the heavy silence, everyone heard them. I carefully folded my napkin and set it beside my plate. "Grandmother Eleanor's trust. It matured on my 30th birthday last September." Aunt Linda's smile widened. "Eleanor would be so proud of how you've managed it. Very sensible decisions. Not everyone has the discipline to handle that kind of inheritance wisely." My cousin Jennifer, Rachel's closest friend, spoke up from across the room. "Wait, Grandma Eleanor left you almost $2 million? The trust was established in 1994 with an initial investment of $400,000. With compound interest over 29 years, the final distribution was $1,847,000. I kept my voice even factual. The maturation date was September 8, 2024. I received the full distribution on September 10 after the legal paperwork cleared. Rachel's phone had slipped from her hand onto the couch. "That's not possible. Grandma died when we were kids. We would have known about a trust. Grandmother established trusts for both of us. Mine matured at 30. Yours matures at 35. The color drained from Rachel's face. "I have a trust fund?" "According to the documentation I received from the estate attorney, yes. Yours was structured differently. Smaller initial investment, longer maturation period. The estimated value at maturation should be around $950,000, assuming similar market performance." My mother had set down her teacup and was gripping the edge of the coffee table. "Leonard, did you know about this?" My father's mouth opened and closed twice before words came out. "Mother mentioned something years ago about setting up educational funds. I assumed they were small accounts. Maybe $10,000 or $15,000 each for college." "They were educational trusts initially," Aunt Linda confirmed, clearly enjoying herself. "But Eleanor was smart. She set them up as irrevocable trusts with very specific terms. The funds could only be accessed by the beneficiary upon maturation, with no parental or familial override. She wanted to ensure both grandchildren had genuine financial security independent of family influence." I watched my mother process that information. The implication that her own mother-in-law had deliberately structured the inheritance to exclude parental control hung in the air like humidity before a storm. Rachel had recovered enough to sound indignant. "And you just never mentioned this? For 4 months you've known you're a millionaire and you said nothing." I informed Mom and Dad via email on September 11th. The subject line was, "Trust Fund Distribution Completed." I received a response on September 14th from Mom saying she'd read it later when she wasn't busy with wedding planning for the Henderson account. I pulled out my phone, opened my email and turned the screen toward the room. The email chain was there, time-stamped and documented. My mother's face went pale. "I thought you were talking about a small savings account." You said, trust fund distribution, and I just assumed. She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. You assumed it was insignificant and therefore not worth your attention, I finished quietly. I understand. You were busy. Don't take that tone with me. Her voice sharpened, defensive. If you told us it was that amount, obviously we would have paid attention. I told you grandmother Eleanor's trust had matured and been distributed. The amount was in the email. You chose not to read it. Rachel had stood up now, her pregnant belly prominent under her pink dress. This is insane. You've had almost $2 million for 4 months and you're still living in that tiny apartment? Still driving that piece of crap car? I live in a rent-controlled one-bedroom in a safe neighborhood. My car is a 2019 Toyota Camry with 48,000 miles on it, which I own outright. Both are perfectly adequate for my needs. Aunt Linda laughed, the sound bright and genuinely delighted. Your grandmother would have loved this. She always said the truly wealthy never need to prove anything. My father had recovered enough to shift into his lawyer voice, the one he used when trying to regain control of a situation. Son, this is a significant amount of money. We need to discuss proper wealth management strategies. I can connect you with our financial advisor. I've already established relationships with a financial advisor, a tax attorney, and an estate planning lawyer. The majority of the funds are invested in a diversified portfolio. I've allocated portions to retirement accounts, liquid savings, and a real estate investment fund. You did all this without consulting us? My mother's voice cracked slightly. I consulted with professionals who specialize in wealth management. Aunt Linda reviewed my strategy as well, given her background in financial planning. Rachel's face had gone from pale to flushed. Aunt Linda knew? Before us. Aunt Linda sipped her punch calmly. I was the trustee successor after Eleanor passed. I've been managing both trusts for the past 18 years. It was my responsibility to ensure the distributions happened properly and that both beneficiaries understood their inheritance. So everyone knew except us? Rachel's voice had climbed an octave. His own parents didn't know their son inherited almost $2 million? I told them, I repeated. They chose not to engage with the information. My father's jaw tightened. That's a mischaracterization. We didn't understand the significance. Because you didn't ask. The email included an attachment with the full distribution statement. You never opened it. Jennifer, still holding a plate of cucumber sandwiches, spoke up again. I mean, honestly, good for you. That's amazing. Rachel turned on her friend. Don't encourage this. He's being deliberately secretive. He sent an email. That's not secretive. That's transparent. My mother stood abruptly. I think we need to discuss this privately. As a family. We are discussing it as a family, I said. In a room full of family members at a family event. This seems appropriate. Aunt Linda set down her punch cup. Eleanor specifically wanted both grandchildren to have this security. She watched too many family fortunes get mismanaged or controlled by the wrong people. She trusted her grandchildren to be wise. So far, I'd say her trust was well placed. Rachel's hands had moved to her belly, a protective gesture. What am I supposed to do with $950,000 in 5 years? I'll have a child. Maybe 2. We'll need that money for their future. You'll do whatever you think is best, I said. Just as I did. What did you do with it? My mother's question came out sharp. Besides hiding it? I'm not hiding anything. I invested 65% in index funds and bonds. I put 20% into high-yield savings accounts. I allocated 10% to a real estate investment trust. And I used 5% for quality of life improvements. Quality of life improvements like what? Rachel gestured at me. You look exactly the same. You live exactly the same. What did you even spend it on? I paid off my student loans in full. I established an emergency fund covering 12 months of expenses. I purchased a new mattress and replaced my 10-year-old laptop. I took a 2-week vacation to Ireland, something I'd wanted to do since college. And I increased my monthly contributions to charity. My father's expression had shifted to something calculating. Paying off student loans. How much were you carrying? $47,000 from my master's degree. You could have asked us for help with that. I did ask. 3 years ago when I graduated. You told me that taking on educational debt was a sign of commitment to my career and that paying it off myself would build character. The silence that followed was profound. My mother looked like she'd been slapped. Rachel sat back down heavily, her hand still on her belly. So you're just rich now. You're just going to be the rich brother who doesn't need anything from anyone. I'm financially secure. That's not the same as being rich. And I've never needed much from anyone. You just didn't notice. Jennifer set down her plate and started applauding slowly. Honestly, this is the best baby shower entertainment I've ever seen. Rachel glared at her. Shut up, Jen. I'm serious. This is fascinating. It's like watching someone win the lottery and everyone being mad they didn't share the ticket. My mother rounded on Jennifer. This is a family matter. Perhaps you should. I'm fine right here, Mrs. Morrison. This is the most honest conversation I've ever heard at one of these events. Aunt Linda laughed again. I like her. My father tried once more to establish authority. Regardless of how we found out, the fact remains that you're our son. We have a right to be involved in major life decisions. You have a right to be informed, which I did. You don't have a right to control decisions about my inheritance. We're not trying to control anything. We're trying to help you. You're trying to manage information you feel entitled to. There's a difference. Rachel had tears in her eyes now, though whether from anger or hormones or genuine emotion I couldn't tell. I can't believe you'd do this to me. My baby shower. You couldn't let me have this one day. I didn't bring it up. Aunt Linda asked a question and I answered honestly. You could have said nothing. You could have changed the subject. I could have. I chose not to. My mother's voice dropped to that dangerous quiet tone. Why are you being deliberately hurtful? I'm not being hurtful. I'm being honest. You're hurt because honesty is uncomfortable. Aunt Linda stood up, brushing invisible crumbs from her skirt. Eleanor used to say that money doesn't change people, it just reveals who they always were. I'm seeing a lot of revelation happening right now. My father's face had gone red. Linda, with all due respect, this is a conversation between us and our son. With all due respect, Leonard, your son is 30 years old and a millionaire. He doesn't need your permission to have conversations. The room had divided into clear camps now. Aunt Linda and Jennifer on one side. My parents and Rachel on the other. The rest of the shower guests looked like they desperately wished they'd RSVP'd no. Rachel wiped at her eyes. Fine. You have your money. Congratulations. I hope it keeps you warm at night since you clearly don't value family. I value family. I just don't value being treated like I'm invisible until there's something to gain from paying attention to me. That's not fair. Isn't it? Kept my voice level. When was the last time you called me just to talk? When was the last time either of you asked about my life, my work, my interests? Not as an afterthought. Not as obligation. When did you last treat me like someone whose presence mattered? My mother's face crumpled. We've been busy. Rachel's pregnant, planning the nursery, there's been so much to do. There's always something. For 29 years there's been something more important than paying attention to me. I accepted that. I built a life anyway. The trust fund just gave me resources to build it better. My father's voice had gone cold. So this is revenge. You're punishing us. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm simply living my life according to my own priorities. If that feels like punishment, that says more about your expectations than my actions. Aunt Linda checked her watch. I should probably get going. I have a client call in an hour. She turned to me with a warm smile. Lunch next week? I want to hear more about the real estate investment trust. That was a smart move. I'd like that. She hugged me, whispered proud of you in my ear and left with a cheerful wave to the room. The party continued, but the energy had fundamentally shifted. Guests made polite excuses and filtered out over the next 30 minutes. Rachel opened her gifts with mechanical precision, the joy completely drained from the occasion. I stayed until the end, helping clean up because it seemed cruel to leave the mess entirely to my parents. My mother worked beside me in silence, wrapping leftover sandwiches with sharp, angry movements. Finally, as I was carrying trash bags to the garage, she spoke. You've changed. I haven't changed. You're just paying attention now. The money changed you. The money freed me. There's a difference. She set down the plastic wrap, her hands shaking slightly. What do you want from us? An apology for not reading your email carefully enough. I don't want anything from you. That's what you're not understanding. I stopped waiting for you to see me years ago. I stopped needing your approval. I stopped hoping you'd treat me like I mattered. The trust fund just made it impossible to pretend none of that happened. So what now? You just cut us out of your life. I'm not cutting anyone out. I'm just not pretending anymore. If you want a relationship with me, it needs to be based on who I actually am, not who you wish I was or what you think you can gain from me. She was crying now, quiet tears that she wiped away angrily. I love you. I know I'm not perfect, but I love you. I believe you love the idea of me. Your son. The concept. I'm not sure you love the person I actually am. And I'm not sure you've ever bothered to find out who that is. I finished taking out the trash and collected my jacket from the hall closet. Rachel had retreated to her old bedroom. My father was in his study, door closed. Driving home in my perfectly adequate Toyota Camry, I felt the same lightness I'd felt after Aunt Linda first told me the trust had matured. Not because of the money itself, but because of what it represented. My grandmother had seen me, had valued me enough to ensure I'd have security and independence. She'd structured the trust to mature at 30 specifically because she believed that's when I'd be old enough to handle it wisely but young enough to truly benefit from it. She'd been right. 3 weeks later, my mother sent a long email. A real apology, the kind that acknowledged specific mistakes without deflecting blame. She asked if we could have coffee and talk. Really talk. I said yes. Not because the money changed my mind, but because her willingness to actually try meant something. Rachel sent a text 2 months later, short and awkward. I'm sorry I reacted badly. Hormones and shock. Congratulations on your inheritance. I replied, thank you. Congratulations on your pregnancy. It wasn't much. But it was honest. My father never apologized directly. But he started calling every few weeks, asking about my work, my interests, actually listening to the answers. Small steps. The money sat in accounts and investments, growing quietly. I'd upgraded to a 2-bedroom apartment with a home office. I'd started a small scholarship fund at my alma mater. I'd taken my time and figured out what mattered to me. Grandmother Eleanor had given me more than financial security. She'd given me the freedom to set my own terms. To demand to be seen. To stop apologizing for existing. The rest was just compound interest.